Intro. Music. Hey my vault dwellers, so after I shared my 80s horror trauma with you, you definitely responded with your own picks. So today I'm counting down the 25 movies that apparently terrified all of you. Some of these I completely get, others, well, let's just say the 80s made us scared of some pretty strange and questionable things. Let's see if you can actually make it to number 1. Or are you too chicken? Music Puppet Master. Music, you know what keeps popping up in the comments? These seriously creepy little puppets. The story follows a Nazi scientist who uses ancient Egyptian magic to bring dolls to life, which already sounds like someone built a plot using a conspiracy theory dartboard. These murderous dolls end up in a hotel targeting psychics, which is a very specific victim pool. I understand why this one stuck with so many of you. Blade, Pinhead, but not that Pinhead, and Tunneler are basically childhood toys turned violent. Full Moon Features produced it for around $400,000, and somehow it led to 11 sequels. Fade to Black. This one came up a lot as a video store nightmare from your childhood, and I get it. Watching a killer reenact classic movie scenes while murdering people feels like the darkest alternate timeline of every obsessive film fan. Dennis Christopher plays the movie-obsessed murderer, and what makes it unsettling isn't just the killings. It's how faithfully he recreates iconic film moments during them. Fun fact, they used actual classic film clips, which probably cost more than the rest of the production. Invaders from Mars. Music. Many of you said this one fed into your childhood fear that adults were acting off. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean alien slugs aren't controlling your parents, right? This remake of the 1953 classic gave us frog-eating teachers, replaced parents, and a school nurse scene that permanently damaged doctor visits. It flopped at the box office because it released 2 weeks after Top Gun, which apparently means audiences preferred their 80s anxiety with more beach volleyball. The Fog. Volleyball. This is KB Antonio Bay, Stevie Wayne speaking, wishing Antonio Bay a happy birthday. John Carpenter followed up Halloween with this tale of undead pirate lepers emerging from a supernatural fog. A concept that sounds like a road trip Mad Lib gone wrong. Made on a tight budget, it still managed to make everyone nervous about weather reports. Adrian Barbeau plays a late-night radio DJ broadcasting from a lighthouse, peak 80s horror setup. The moment the fog rolls in while she's on air is still chilling. And honestly, if your town is celebrating a shady centennial anniversary, maybe take a vacation that week. Demons. Music. A lot of you brought up this wild Italian horror ride. The premise? What if the movie you're watching in a theater starts happening to you in real life? It's meta horror before that was even trendy. The practical effects are completely over the top in the best way. Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento teamed up to deliver something that feels like a heavy metal album cover exploding into motion. And that scene where someone transforms into a demon during a blind date? Probably destroyed dating for an entire horror-loving generation. Something wicked this way comes. Somehow Disney decided to traumatize children with Ray Bradbury's sinister carnival story, and it absolutely worked. Mr. Dark and his soul-stealing carnival pretty much ruined state fairs for a whole generation. Jonathan Pryce plays him like a charming but deeply sinister salesman straight from hell. Disney even res-hot parts of the film to make it scarier, which feels very un-Disney. The spider scene alone is pure childhood nightmare fuel. Even now, carousel music feels suspicious, and judging by your comments, I'm not the only one. CHUD. But we're lost. Good. This might be the greatest acronym in horror, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. Or as I call them, the reason I avoid certain subway tunnels. The movie convinced an entire generation that something was lurking beneath every manhole cover. Some of you probably crossed the street just to avoid walking over one. Beneath the monster mayhem, there's commentary about homelessness and toxic waste, which is surprisingly heavy for a creature feature. But let's be honest, we were all just terrified of those glowing eyes in the sewer darkness. They even filmed in real New York tunnels, which probably explains why the cast looked genuinely frightened. Galaxy of Terror, a truly nightmarish ride, was produced by Roger Corman and is essentially an alien-inspired horror that dares to go further than even Alien did. It proves that sometimes the smallest budgets can deliver the most terrifying results. Future Hollywood heavyweight James Cameron handled production design, which explains why it looks far more polished than expected. It also features a young Robert Englund, who later became the iconic Freddy Krueger. The film's tagline was "Beyond your deepest fears, beyond your wildest dreams," more like beyond the reach of any therapy session. Paul Schrader's remake Cat People, about people who transform into panthers when aroused, unsettled many viewers. Natasha Kinski, I hope I've got that right, and Malcolm McDowell play siblings with a very unusual family condition. David Bowie even contributed the theme song, giving the movie an extra layer of sexual intensity. The autopsy scene alone convinced more people to avoid medical careers than any real medical school could. The combination of horror and eroticism earned this film a permanent place in many teenage nightmares and late-night HBO viewings. Deadly Friend. Wes Craven created a story about a boy genius who turns his deceased girlfriend into a robot. There's a scene where Kristy Swanson's character literally blasts someone's head with a basketball, classic Craven. Warner Brothers pressured Craven to add more gore after test audiences demanded something akin to A Nightmare on Elm Street, resulting in a bizarre mix of teen romance and violent robot action. Imagine Short Circuit meets The Terminator, but with extra teenage angst. The Gate, tiny demons emerge from a hole in a suburban backyard, making even yard work terrifying in true 80s style. The little monsters were actually men in suits filmed with forced perspective, which is both inventive and unsettling. A young Stephen Dorff faces literal hell in his backyard while his parents are away. One of the most extreme ways to open a gateway to hell, playing a heavy metal record backward, purely 80s. The Beast Within. This movie contains intense transformation sequences in its final 30 minutes, and the filmmakers recommend caution for anyone easily shocked. A woman is attacked in the woods, and that's putting it lightly, and years later, her teenage son begins to transform. Practical effects teams used air bladders to create the grotesque metamorphosis, pumping them until they broke. The monster's backstory? He's possessed by cicada spirits, an explanation only the 80s could sell with a straight face. Sleepaway Camp. This summer camp slasher starts typically, but veers into one of the most shocking twists in horror history. If you've seen it, you know. If not, good luck sleeping tonight. Beyond the finale, the movie features inventive kills, like Death by Beehive and the shortest shorts in horror cinema history. The 80s truly were a different era. My Bloody Valentine. Nothing says romance like a miner wielding a pickaxe to express his feelings. Many of you mentioned how this ruined Valentine's Day, which makes sense. The MPAA heavily cut it, but restored versions show just how brutal love can be. Filmed in an actual Nova Scotia mining town with real miners as extras, it's no wonder the underground scenes look genuinely uncomfortable. Fun fact: the killer's breathing inspired Darth Vader's iconic sound. Silver Bullet. Stephen King's werewolf tale stars Corey Haim as a wheelchair-bound hero fighting a werewolf. Gary Busey plays the cool uncle, arguably the scariest part of the film. Carlo Rambaldi, who designed E.T., created the werewolf, but it looked so poor that it had to remain mostly in shadows. Watching a kid in a rocket-powered wheelchair chase a werewolf? Pure 80s horror. Silent Night, Deadly Night. This movie made Santa terrifying. Young Billy watches his parents murdered by a man in a Santa suit, and he eventually grows up punishing the naughty in a twisted version of Christmas Justice. The uproar was so severe that parents got it pulled from theaters. Fun fact: critics like Sisal and Eber were so offended they publicly shamed the production team. Definitely a coal-in-your-stocking moment. Day of the Dead. Horror legend George Romero went full throttle with his third Dead installment. Tom Savini outdid himself on practical effects, including the memorable scene where a character is torn in half screaming, "Choke on them." The movie initially flopped because audiences wanted another Dawn of the Dead, but this claustrophobic military bunker nightmare realistically explores what might happen if humans attempted to contain a zombie outbreak. Spoiler alert, it doesn't go well. Night of the Scarecrow. This made-for-television movie somehow terrified audiences even more than many theatrical releases. It follows small-town vigilantes who kill an innocent man, only to have a scarecrow begin appearing in unsettling locations. Larry Drake plays Bubba, the wrongfully accused man, delivering a performance that's both heartbreaking and unnerving. It's proof that CBS could scare kids just as effectively as any traditional horror studio. The Entity, based on a purportedly true story of a woman being attacked by an unseen force, this one strikes differently because, honestly, how do you escape something invisible? Barbara Hershey's portrayal convinces you she's genuinely being tormented by nothing. Many viewers reported hearing or sensing things in empty rooms for years afterward, and some even struggled to bathe normally. Martin Scorsese called it one of the most frightening horror films ever. The entity's manifestations, using cold spots and physical attacks, were accomplished with practical effects that remain impressive today. Uniquely, the resolution involves liquid helium, making it one of the few horror films with such a scientific twist. Prince of Darkness. John Carpenter fused quantum physics with religious horror to create a cerebral yet terrifying story about Satan as green liquid lurking in a church basement. Actual quantum physics equations appear on chalkboards, crafted with guidance from a professor to ensure authenticity. A memorable scene shows a man biking away while possessed townspeople stare at him, a masterclass in building tension with gaze and synth music alone. Scanners. David Cronenberg's head-exploding psychic war story still shocks new viewers. Practical effects were chaotic yet genius. For the famous head explosion, they used dog food and rabbit livers. The film was produced so quickly that scripts often arrived the same day as shooting, yet the rush helped create perfect body horror. Michael Ironside delivers a career-defining performance as the psychic antagonist. The Funhouse, a carnival nightmare where 4 teens spend a night trapped in a dark ride because, apparently, horror characters rarely visit carnivals. Rick Baker's makeup effects shine, especially when the killer's Frankenstein mask comes off to reveal something even more horrifying. And the mechanical fat lady's laugh? Truly disturbing. Terror Train. On New Year's Eve, a killer continually switches costumes because one mask just isn't enough. Jamie Lee Curtis proves her Scream Queen status, making sprinting through train cars genuinely terrifying. David Copperfield plays a magician named the Magician, and the killer's final reveal feels like a twisted, adult version of Scooby-Doo with revenge and murder on a speeding train. Hellraiser. Clive Barker's masochistic tale of pain, pleasure, and cursed puzzle boxes traumatized a generation, particularly with Pinhead, who proved that acupuncture was never meant to be a fashion statement. Made for under $1 million, the majority of the budget went to chains and leather. The Changeling, claiming the top spot, George C. Scott faces a ghostly presence linked to a red rubber ball. Based on screenwriter Russell Hunter's claimed experiences in a Denver mansion, this film shows that the scariest things are often what you don't see. The wheelchair scene on the stairs is meticulously crafted, outshining many modern horror films in attention to detail. Its effectiveness comes from building tension through simple elements: a bouncing ball, a child's laughter, a music box melody. Scott's portrayal of fear is so convincing that viewers feel it themselves. To those of you who made it to the end, these are the films that haunted your nights and may have funded a few therapist vacations. Drop a comment if I missed any childhood horror favorites, or if you've dared to revisit any of these alone. This is Dan, reminding you that sometimes the most frightening elements aren't monsters, they're ordinary things rendered terrifying on screen. So stay radical, and maybe keep the lights on tonight.